Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to another episode of B is for Build. We're here working in the shop in what is going to be a mid-engine 1967 Mustang Fastback. Oscar and I unboxed and brought over one panel and our heads completely exploded and we have a lot of hard problems to figure out. My goal, what I'd really like to do is maybe have the body mock fitted onto the frame just to kind of see how this is gonna fit by the end of today's episode. Stay tuned. I want to start this episode by defending myself. I do mock things up on the computer. I visualize these things using software to try and save money so I don't, for instance, buy a whole 1967 Mustang body and have it not work out. But sometimes on the computer, things are like a problem, but you're like, it's not a big problem. And then you just play off of it. Well, I kind of ignored a big glaring problem. And let me show you. So this is a 67 Mustang Fastback side panel. Basically it holds your door. That's actually where your door bolts in. That's where your quarter panel glues in. That's where your roof glues in. I'm kidding when I say glue. You weld all this stuff together. Anyways, we unboxed this from our massive shipment of parts over there, which I'm going to talk about in a second, and we brought it over to the car and we set it at its relative height. You can see a few things. One is this car is going to be extremely low to the ground, which I think is really cool. It's going to add a lot of character to this build. Two, I think it's pretty obvious that this front wheel is too close, and that's why we've talked about cutting the body in half and moving it forward, because the specs of the 67 Mustang have this wheel being 3.5 inches further that way. But three is cockpit positioning. You can see if you just draw this little triangle right here, the room to get in and out of the vehicle is really limited. So we're looking at ways to try and fix that problem. So to fix that problem, we can this is a fixed back seat. We can use a reclining seat, which we will. We have one on the way. So that'll scooch us back a little bit more, give us a little bit more room for entry. Other than that, there's some niceties that we're going to do by moving the pedal and moving the steering wheel after we make the chop. Other than that, there's nothing that we can do. So would I rather have a mid-engine 1967 Fastback that's a little hard to get into, or not have one at all is the question. And the answer is let's keep building, because I want my Fastback. So getting to work, we've got to get some of the existing tubular structure out of our way to be able to get the side panel on here. In the 3D mock-ups that I've done, the bottom of this side panel, which I can't really show you, I can show you right here. The bottom pinch weld on this side panel has to be touching this part of the frame, which means this has got to go for now. This should go, and I think that's what we would want to cut out for now at minimum. So I'm gonna grab a saw. This poor thing. It's looking sadder than the Supra. All right, guys, well, got to take it down to build it back up, right? So I noticed when I was getting into a lot of these bolts, they started spinning. These ones came out clean, and then the other ones started spinning. It made me start thinking, okay, there must be access. I started trying to cut them off with a saw, and then I thought, there's got to be access from another part. Then I realized this rear bulkhead right here, this basically this to this and up here, that is removable. So I took out the center beam that went through here. I think that was like kind of a stunt beam because they knew they were going to hit the car over here. So that's gone. We may rebuild that for safety. It looked like it was pretty solid, pretty stout. Probably a pretty good thing to have, but I don't think you have to have that. I don't think SLC cars run those, and I can do more research, or probably some SLC owners will chime in the comments whether or not those come from factory. But I do want to remove this this bulkhead. So it's got some tape, some aluminum tape everywhere. This car has it absolutely everywhere. They were using this kind of as a firewall, which isn't good enough in the long term. I guess in the short term for a movie car, it's probably good enough, but for us we need actual firewall stuff that keeps us a little bit more safe in the event of a fire in the engine bay. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the aluminum tape, remove the screws. That'll give me access to this rear bulkhead, and a couple cool things that we can do then. We can see the wiring that's running through from the engine through here. We can see how the shift cables run, and then we can also see our fuel cell, estimate size, and see the certifications that the fuel cell has. So I'm going to go ahead and unscrew, remove the tape, remove this bulkhead. All right, we got the rear bulkhead off. This is a FIA certified fuel bladder. The company that made it looks like it's out of business, and the date on it is FIA 1999. So any sanctioning race bodies that are going to require like a crazy up-to-date fuel cell safety stuff, like we can't take this on the Baja 1000, the Mint 400, probably can't drag race it in the 7-second range. Other than that, though, it's a really good quality, really safe fuel cell. It's just a little out of date on the safety recs. One thing is it doesn't have a fuel sender unit, so that is something that I actually ordered. We will go ahead and install that and then run a wire, and then I can have a gauge that'll tell me how much fuel I have. A little bit better for everyday driving. Overall, very, very happy to see that in there, and that's awesome. And the bulkhead can, just bolts right back in and goes in. We cleaned up all the tape around. All right, so now that all that stuff is out of the way, we can start replacing our side panel onto the car and seeing where things need to land. We need to get the side panel so this coolant line tucks inside the side panel. The side panel maybe goes under it a little bit. Coolant line needs to go inside it. Get it really snugged up right up against the side of the car, and that will be our flat spot and set our width spot, and then we'll start to see how things fall together. Fingers crossed we can get this thing on here. If not, whatever's in the way gets cut off. Rear inner outer wheel arch. You heard that right? That's the inner outer wheel arch, because that's the inner wheel arch. Anyways, it's hanging us up. We can't put the car body all the way down, so we're gonna, luckily that unbolts, so we don't have to cut anything. We're gonna unbolt it, and then we've marked where the center line is, so we're center line over the wheel. We'll set that down, snug it up, and reap what we sow. What we sow pretty quick here. The coolant line is blocking the body from moving on. Rather than notching this out and just shoving it on there, we actually want to replace this coolant line. You can see obviously it's rusty. It's actually eating away at the frame. This has got to be replaced with some aluminum and then a 90-degree bend. So we can take it off right now, but we actually, we just moved in here. We don't have any more trays to catch the coolant so we can properly dispose of it. So we're not going to pop those lines off right now. So it's time to jump to the other side, continue putting the cage on a diet. We're going to go ahead and remove this front section, because you can just see by our kind of forecasted expansion zone here for the hood. You laughing at my words? Forecasted expansion zone is it's not going to work, so we got to cut that off. This is going to hit here. This has got to go. The whole other side. We're going to unbolt what we can, cut off what we can't. Here we go. We put this thing on a diet. It looks a lot different than when we started, and it's going to continue to look different. Over the last 2 days, there's been some talks on whether we should just shorten up a few body panels and not cut the chassis of this car, or if we should extend the chassis of this car. A lot of factors played into that. It's really not that hard to take the cowl, which is right over here, and the fenders, which are right over there, and take 3.5 inches off of them. It's really not that hard at all. But then the dimensionality of the car is just a tiny bit off. I could show you here visualizing it. It's not really obvious that the change is made when you just look at it from afar, but I would know. But the big thing that made us decide that we want to cut and extend the chassis is that it's actually going to be beneficial to us to have this chassis be 3.5 inches better. It means we can put the pedals in a better position, because right now they're kind of limited in their positioning, and it's going to help out with our dashboard. So we are going to go ahead and cut the chassis. Before we do that though, I would like to go ahead and remove these coolant lines. Like we said, it is the next day, so we have some drain pans and everything. We're going to go ahead and jack this thing up and remove the coolant lines from both sides, drain the coolant out of the car, and then I'd like to test fit the side panels once again before we cut the car in half. So here's what we did. We took the reservoirs off for the clutch, brake lines. That's it. There's gonna be one more, but there's not. And what that's gonna allow us to do is remove that pedal box completely from here. We also unbolted it from the bottom of the car just to get that out of the way. All the other wires that you see here have enough room to be extended 3.5 inches. Oh, hydro e-brake line right there is free to slide back. So I believe that we gotta loosen this guy up right here, disconnect the brake lines on the other side, and then it's cutting time. Oscar's gonna go ahead and do the honors since he's gonna be welding it back up. Let you cut the car in half. Second car this winter that we've cut in half, yeah. My car's cut in half. I use the term car pretty lightly at this point. The chassis for my Mustang chassis is cut in half. Oscar did a great job cutting this baby in half. He is now over there cutting out the aluminum chunks that we're gonna use to weld it back together. This is probably the easiest car in the world to cut in half and lengthen the chassis. So I know when they produced these for the movies, they made a bunch of them at different lengths. It's really just the difference of this thing right here and then the floor pan. So we're all set, we're all ready. He's gonna go ahead and cut out all those blocks and get them in there, and then we're gonna weld this baby back up. 2-day process to cut and weld the car back together. That's pretty quick. Look at this. I'm in the old Burnt-A-Con. We're getting this thing back up and running soon. Hey, I wanted to interrupt this episode real quick with a little bit of feedback. There were a lot of great comments on our first episode. Very nicely put input from you viewers, which I love to read, I love to hear, and I wanted to give you guys my input back real fast. I'll try and do this fast. I think the number one comment that I saw was, why not build a Ford GT40 out of this instead of a Mustang Fastback? It's a really good point. It being a mid-engine car, it is better set up for that. RCR, the company that made that chassis, they made that whole vehicle, race car replicas, they actually made all the Ford GT40s for the Ford vs. Ferrari movie. I tried to buy one of those the second the movie came out. I called the guy up, asked if I could buy any. He didn't have any left. Somebody bought all of them. They're gone. But the company Race Car Replicas does sell these. They're on their website. If any of you guys want one, you can go buy one. They start at like $26,000 without an engine. They sell these, and the body, we could order one, wait a little bit, the body would show up, and the body would probably just start to pretty much just bolt right onto this chassis. So why aren't we doing that? It kind of comes down to just like my own personal desires. I didn't grow up having a Ford GT40 on my wall. I did not know what a Ford GT40 was until I was way into cars. I think it's a beautiful car and it's got an amazing story, but for me, the Mustang Fastback, with my history that I have with it already, and just the looks of the car and how long I've wanted one, it is the iconic car for me that I really want to own. And the GT40, although it would be cool to have to the collection, is not as desirable to me as the 67 Fastback. Another comment that I saw a lot was, this is a great platform to build your own supercar, like kind of like what Tavares planned on doing. I'm not sure if he's still doing that, where we design our own body for it and we put the body on this. I've already done that. That is the single-seater project. I've already designed it. I've built the frame from the ground up. We have a rolling chassis and frame, and the goal is to bring that to LS Fest West in some form to be able to do a shakedown. So it probably won't have any body, but it'll be the raw frame chassis driving. I would love to give it a shakedown and test it out, because LS Fest West has everything from dirt, autocross, circuit racing, drag racing, drifting. They have every principle of racing pretty much there. So it's a great place to test it out. So that's why I'm not using this to build a custom supercar. supercar because I've already designed my own custom supercar. I have the body design, the plans, the chassis, the power plant, everything. And you'll see that in a couple weeks, not too long from now. So yeah, I'm not building this into a custom supercar because I've already designed my own and I've already got started on it. So I'm not gonna like use this to override that. And one final thing is a lot of people, oh my gosh, without seats in this car, it's really hard to get out of. A lot of people think that this was Tavarish's car. No, I think he had a Koenigsegg from the movie. Or no, he had the Lamborghini Siesto Elemento. So it's not the same car. Tavarish sold his off to somewhere, I have no idea where. And apparently his wasn't in as good of condition as ours, but yeah. So anyways, starting with different cars. Anyways, back to it. Oscar got the car welded back together, so you can see this is how we made our 3 inches here. We got 2 inches here and 1 inch here. We do stuff like this rather than buying one piece because the multiple walls in the middle makes it a little bit stronger. We have more structure there. And we're gonna also cap this and then gusset this, but that's gonna be in the next episode. So the car is welded back together. It is strong. We do have a little bit of finishing work to do though. But before we do that, we need to start making sure we got all the parts for this build. That's a really big thing is when we're on a tight time schedule, we need to make sure that we have every single part that we need. And it's time to get all of the body parts out and ready for this thing. So we are going to unbox everything that we got left from over there and kind of start to organize it all around the car, catalog, make sure we have everything. This is pretty cool. I'm gonna get you guys an aerial view in a second here. We're gonna bring that scissor lift over. But I just kind of wanna walk through what we got going on here. And it's a really good thing that we laid all these parts out because we identified a couple parts that I forgot to order. Like there's no front lower balance there. Yeah, there's definitely actually more than a few parts that I forgot to order. So I got all of those ordered right now. But you know, coming back, so you can see we have a lot of Dynacorn reproduction parts. These are brand new parts off the line. They're licensed by Ford to reproduce them. So that's like a front, they call that a front spoiler. It's like a lower valance, front bumper, hood, cowl, dash panel. These are off of a Mustang I bought before I started BS for Build actually. This one is gonna be used on this build. That one I did not know has been in a wreck. It's got a pretty gnarly dent in it. So I'll use the headlight scoop, but the rest of it I ordered another reproduction fender. These are our side panels that you saw earlier in the video. These are our rear quarter panels, so this welds onto that once that's in place. I don't have doors yet. That's a big thing that we got to source. And then coming back here we have roof connection, rear filler panel, fastback trunk lid, and then coming down I'm missing the whole taillight panel. That was another thing I forgot to get. Then rear bumper and rear valance. It's pretty cool how you can pretty much order the entire body for one of these cars online. And I ordered all mine through this place called Nick's Garage. I'm gonna put a link in the description below. He's a really, really cool guy that helps people with all sorts of projects, from like fastback conversions for these cars are really popular. So if you have a coupe notchback and you wanna change it into a fastback, he can help you source all those parts, or any type of you know, Dynacorn parts and stuff like that. He's a really good resource to have, a really good person to know. So the link is in the description below if you guys are in the market. So in the next episode, we're gonna be taking all of this stuff, the majority of this stuff, basically all the stuff that we possibly can, and we're gonna start test fitting it on this car. We wanna make sure that we can get things like the main part of the body, the trunk lid, the cowl, the dash panel, those things placed on this body so we can start making space for our roll cage. Well, figuring out where our roll cage has space to go, I should say. Pretty cool. We started this episode with a single seater with way too much stuff on it that definitely couldn't fit a body, to now we have a single seater that's got the exact right wheelbase for 67 Mustang Fastback. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in a couple days with the next episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. See you then. Peace!